Today's show was recorded live at Paradiso, North Charleston's premier family-friendly social club. Dine, swim, and vibe with Paradiso. The restaurant and market are open to the public. For hours and membership inquiries, go to paradisochs.com or call 843-885-4663. Welcome to the Shrimp City Report. My name's Devin. I'm joined today by...
DJ here. It's a hot one today.
And where are we at today, Madeline?
We're at Paradiso, that's located in North Charleston, close to Park Circle. It's a pool and cabana club.
Yep, and we are on location, so there will be a little ambient noise that we'll be hearing today, but we have two of our friends and two local notable Charleston artists, Scott and Kaye Penegar. Scott, Kaye, can y'all say hello?
Hello, thanks for having us.
All right, let's go ahead and get things going with some, well, not questions. Let's have some conversation today. How about that? What we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to find out a little background from the both of you. Scott, where are you from? And did you start off with any particular love of art, or did you just fall into it?
So I was born and raised in Salisbury, North Carolina, which is a small town about an hour north of Charlotte. And went to Appalachian State to snow ski, mainly. Academics weren't my thing. I think it was a business major. I actually went in not even knowing what a major was. I went to college. And I went to Appalachian and settled in, and then I met my wife, Kaye. And Kaye's from down this area. Specifically where?
Lone Star, South Carolina.
I didn't know that existed.
Outside Texas, right?
As the older crowd slowly passes on, it's not much left that exists in Lone Star, but knew that I loved art from early on. Won my first coloring contest at 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
And won $100. Or 100 monies, as it was to me at that point. And always knew I wanted art, and Appalachian State had a great art department, and that's how I made the decision to go.
So did you have high school art, middle school? Did you have formal instruction?
I had piano lessons, which I was not attending very regularly, and a friend that was in church, her mother decided to start art classes, who was an artist, and I immediately stopped piano and started taking art classes in 5th grade and worked with her through high school. There was art at the high school also, but not to the extent that it is today.
Okay.
This is back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and it was harder.
Doing cave drawings back then?
Exactly.
Scott, were you doing any coloring competitions when you were a little kid?
Yes. In 3rd grade, I won a coloring contest for and designed a Fire Kills poster. I didn't get any money, though. It was a flame, really angry flame, like shaking his fist.
Where did you go to school that people had to be reminded that fire kills?
This is Salisbury, North Carolina.
Okay.
I said a small town north of Charlotte. But then I took some art classes, and then I had some art classes in high school as well. But I didn't go to Appalachian to study art. That was the last thing that it never occurred to me to study art.
Well, how did you progress to art from a business major?
So I had...
That would be me.
I was hanging out
is
with
how
Kaye.
he progressed.
So we met, and I fell in love with her the second I met her. And we didn't date, but I would go play tennis with her every day. And she beat me every single day for at least one whole semester. And I kept going
3
back
years.
and forth.
That was one long semester.
But she was an art major. And so I was helping her with her art projects, blowing off my classes and my homework. And so we'd be out in the hallway of her dorm, and I was doing her style. And then at the same time flunking every class I had. And this went on for a year, 2 years.
About the same amount of time I beat you in tennis.
And then she finally goes, "Why don't you try art?" I'm like, "What?" But real quick, so after I switched to art, I got an award in my fraternity for the highest jump in GPA in one semester. And immediately made Dean's List every semester because I was good enough at it that I could still kind of party and do my thing, but make good grades.
That's great.
That's uncommon for artists to party or be on the fringe of anything, isn't it?
I think I was only frat brother and a fraternity guy in the art department, but yeah, I loved it. I mean, it was just like, and plus, when we start art school, your first classes are all things called foundations,
Right.
which are like cutting out pieces of paper and doing like just kind of like stuff you would probably do in kindergarten. Okay, you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, composition, just trying to, I think, get a group idea. There was always the classes where you have the assignment, you walk in, everybody puts their artwork up on the board, and everybody has a big square with 3 little squares in it, and there's always this one person who has a circle with 3 circles in it, and you're already going, okay, yeah, maybe that person isn't cut out.
But it teaches you color composition, and it was actually kind of funny. That book, Everything I Needed to Know About Life, I learned in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that everything I need to learn about art, I learned in foundations courses.
You do. You learn a lot in those.
And then once you have a year of that, I suppose, then you branch out like to other like painting and sculpture and other medium. But the foundations courses are actually what they are, foundations, and you learn all the basic rules and ideas about design and color.
DJ is from the School of the Arts as well. Did you, in your early classes, like Scott was talking about, did you get all the foundation stuff, the color wheels, all that business?
Yeah, all that stuff, complementary stuff like that, working on
perspectives and working in different mediums. Did you explore a lot of mediums when you were?
Not during foundations. It
Okay,
was truly,
gotcha.
it was like cut paper.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of like collage stuff and.
That sounds like design or something.
It was a lot of design. It
3D
wasn't
design,
until after
2D.
that freshman year that you started getting into making. We had to make our own balsa wood camera
Wow.
and slide just individual pieces
It was
of.
true photography. We had to make them out of balsa wood, and then
Wow.
we had photographic paper. We had to be in a dark room, put it in the camera slot, and actually they had 4 different focal lengths. We had fisheye, regular, telephoto, and like 4 different categories where you could slide the paper in different lengths. Mm-hmm. And you'd have to go outside with a tripod and shoot it, aim it at something for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I
to
was
develop
wondering
it.
what the exposure time
Right.
was.
And then you would take it into a dark room, pull it out, develop it, and you would have a photograph.
So it's back like you're living in the 1930s,
Yeah,
essentially.
camera obscura.
Yeah. Exactly. And with something like that, you could actually, and I did one, sat on a bench for half of the exposure time and then sat next to myself for the other half of the exposure time. So I'm sitting beside myself. I just a little faint in the picture.
That's pretty cool. But everybody thought you were out there just sitting like a weirdo with a bird box or a birdhouse or something.
Well, you
Shoot,
knew-
outside the art department, all these people were with these box cameras on tripods, standing there watching them for like 5 minutes, and they're aimed at because you can't even tell because they're rectangular, so you can't even tell which end's which, But I still have mine.
Oh, that's cool.
And mine, let's see, one day in January when it was snowy and my dorm was next to the art building, I walked out and thought, this just looks like a beautiful day. I had my box camera under my arm, slipped on the ice. The box camera went up in the air and I fell on it. And that was the end of my box camera
Aw.
for that semester. And then I had to use my roommate, who was also an art major, and Scott's to finish because I did not have time.
Aw.
The light leaks were unbelievable after you sit on your camera.
Sorry to belabor the box camera thing, but why do you use balsa?
Because it was light and we could cut it ourselves. We lived in dorms, so we didn't really have much equipment.
It wasn't because it doesn't hurt when you fall on top of it.
Well, that could have had, although some of the other classes we took were, we went into the wood shop and designed things there, and we were
That's so
on
cool.
We
lathe,
had welding and all that
lathes
stuff as
and
well,
welding. I mean,
My
so
art
you
school
had,
was totally different. Not
So-
as fun.
so we had all of these things that you could dabble in, and Appalachian also has had a loft in New York and offered that as each semester for a trip up there to spend
Wow.
time.
Yeah,
And
we had a
then
place in D.C. as well.
That's so cool.
and our professors were phenomenal, and one had she did charcoal pencil, Judy Humphreys, and if you looked at it from a distance, you thought you were looking at a black and white photograph. And she did several shows in New York, and we were able to go up
That's
and
amazing.
see the work. I mean, the whole process was very inspirational, and they made it seem like, yes, art is a possibility to make a living. They might have been a little sketchy on that part, but
No pun intended.
but I will say that they almost required all art majors to have an their minor in business and marketing,
that's
marketing
great.
major.
That's great.
But back to the box cameras, though, it was basically teach design, because you're doing a lot of abstracts. You're close up on like some angular whatever, or maybe like close up of, like one of my favorite ones was a close up of like a side view mirror in a car. So you can see the reflection on the side view mirror, but it's also reflection in the window itself. And it was really mostly design, but I also learned in photography at its purest form. But then that was the beginning photograph class, and then we moved to a real single lens what do they call those things? SIS, single lens reflex, like
Okay,
a fancy camera. So the next class we actually moved up to a real camera.
Well, the fact that we're telling you we don't remember that means we paint. We do not take photographs anymore, except to paint from.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Jump in anytime y'all want.
Okay, so moving on, how did you get to Charleston after school?
Okay, you came here first.
I moved back home, and at that point I was in Orangeburg, South Carolina, worked in advertising at the the Times and Democrat, the local newspaper, and after 2 years decided I was ready to leave Orangeburg, and I applied for a job in the advertising department. They were looking for an artist to help design ads at the Post and Courier, and I went and applied for that job. And the day that I applied, one of the ad reps had left kind of unexpectedly. So I thought, oh, let's see, the pay is twice what it was for the art job. So I thought, and I asked at the time, I said, so can I be the ad agent, but can I design my own ads for the people? And I did. So I very seldom use the art department to design my ads. I got to design them. And so I moved here in '85,
Right.
and started working at the Times and Democrat. The Post and Courier, and it wasn't even the Post and Courier then, because then it was the News and Courier and the Evening Post.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And,
did the art department have any problem with that, or?
Oh, no. And I would still consult with them on occasion, and they were great to pull specs together for me. But, I think one ad that I did, and I was coming up with the sayings and everything too, and they had just opened business area out at Stono Ferry and wanted to advertise that they could hold conventions and gatherings out there. And I drew a little robin with the golf bag on his shoulder saying, kill two birdies with one stono. You can come out, golf and have your meetings out here. And
Yeah. For anybody that's not from Charleston listening, that pun kills here with the Stono River. Before we go on to want to talk about the marriage and your union of doing the same thing, I want to ask all four of y'all, just getting back to the fundamentals of art, starting with Scott. Tell me if sketching and being able to draw is the first thing that you should know. How is that a foundation to art?
I think it depends on the person. I don't do much sketching, so I sculpt and paint. And for one, sculpture, I can't really sketch it. I may do like a small miniature sculpture that I may use to kind of get an idea of what I'm doing, maybe with the composition and all. But with my paintings, I really don't sketch at all. I will draw maybe directly onto the canvas I'm getting ready to paint. but it won't be a sketch. It'll be what I'm going to be painting on.
Okay, but you got plenty when you were young as far as in school?
I didn't do much sketching in school. I didn't. No, not at all.
We had to do blind contour drawings,
Okay.
and so
Yeah, those were cool.
so we did have that. In fact, one of mine I framed, and it still hangs in our house today.
I love blind contour drawings. They're some of my favorite drawings.
Well, cool,
Yeah.
Madeline. You can explain what a blind contour drawing is to the
When you
all of
close
us
your
folks.
eyes, no, you don't close your eyes. You actually put a pencil in your hand. You look at the subject you're drawing, and you can't look down at the pencil or your hand on the paper, and you draw what you see.
And you can't lift the pencil up either. So
It's
Well,
one
if
line.
you lift it up, you'll never know where to put it back. And ours, you didn't have the choice of looking because they had a sheet about 12 inches above where you were drawing.
really?
You couldn't see
Wow.
your paper.
No cheaty.
Sounds like witchcraft.
It trains your muscles. Like athletes, it helps you train your muscles like an athlete trains his.
How about you, DJ? Tell me about drawing.
I think that at least sketching and back to blind contour, that muscle that it trains, I think, is all about proportions, which I think is key for any type of art, whether it's 3D or not 3D. And I think that even when you train one muscle, like if you're trying to do 3D, you learn more about proportions either way. So.
All right, well, thanks for the explanation. You know, we have a lot of listeners that like soccer or like comic books, and many do not know about the finer points of some of the stuff that you speak about. So we will expound upon them when we can. Right now, let's expound upon being married. When did you get married, and were you still in school when you got married?
I did not particularly want to date him in school. So, no, we were not.
Okay.
Well, real quick, after I graduated, I looked for about 6 months. I lived at home looking for a job as an artist, and it was unsuccessful. So I moved to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, in Morehead City, and I got a job as a commercial fisherman. So I was going 200 miles offshore, for a week at a time, catching fish, and I made a ton of money. It was like my first job. But I don't know how long I actually did it, but my parents were unhappy. They thought it was dangerous and made me quit. So I got a job designing exhibits for the North Carolina Aquarium there.
Oh, wow.
So I did that for a while, and then the whole time I'm doing it, I decided I always liked marine biology. I wanted to, be the next Jacques Cousteau. Right. So after a year of doing that, I decided to go back to grad school in marine biology. So I took one semester at UNC Wilmington to get background courses because I had an art degree.
Right.
But I followed Kaye to Charleston, who I loved, and went to grad school at the College of Charleston in marine biology.
Okay.
But I followed her here because she was my soulmate.
Apparently not to date me, but just to aggravate the hell out of me.
Okay.
Because, yes, again, we were still not dating.
Oh, wow.
So we dated off and on for, 3 or 4 years?
Yeah. So he found you that infatuating that he came down, and the dude, I mean, for goodness sakes, he changed his major. I mean, that's got to be something.
That was out of necessity. That's the only way I was going to get out of
Well, you got a
college.
master's in marine biology.
Yeah, that's right. Marine biology has helped your sculpture. We'll talk about that in a few. So my next question is, did you see Jurassic Park? Oh, you did? Okay. What'd you think of it?
I loved it. I mean,
What'd you think of it, DJ?
I thought it was good. Which one?
well, yeah.
Yeah, which one?
Sorry. It's Jurassic Park 2.
Oh, I didn't think it's that great.
Oh, two.
Okay.
No, I like the first one.
Yeah, the monsters come back. Kaye, familiar? Madeline?
I like one.
I
That's
saw-
the only one I like.
That's the only one I saw.
That's the only one
Okay.
I saw, too.
Was right.
Okay, well, cool. So in Jurassic Park 2, it takes place in a place that's got jungles and a lot of fauna and foliage, just like a country called Puerto Rico. So how did y'all end up in Puerto Rico?
So I've traveled well with my family, and I wanted to live overseas. I wasn't really doing much in Charleston at the time. So I was trying to figure out, where to go that we could actually live at that would be not quite culture shock. And I had been in San Juan, and it's part of America, so you don't need any kind of work visas or anything to work there.
Okay.
Kaye's job had just gotten completely screwed up, and they
They were restructuring the pay scale for the ad reps and things, and
at the News
so
and Courier.
right, and that had just become a little bit disenchanted myself and the boss that I mean, my boss was actually at our wedding, and he had moved on to something else, and the new guy wasn't anybody that it was losing that family feel.
Sure.
So I was willing to leave. In fact, the first time I left the country was we went to Honduras on our honeymoon.
Okay.
I was at the Post and Courier then. We got married in 1988, and when he asked me to marry him, I thought he was just asking me a question about some random girl and wanted my advice.
I dated so many people.
Sometimes when you have a really good friend, if the person you like is your good friend, you don't always know whether they're talking about you or somebody else.
I know. I was
That's
talking
like-
about being married. She got quieter and quieter. I'm like, well, this isn't going well at all. Finally, she's like getting ready to get up. I'm like, where are you going? She says, I'm leaving. You don't want to get married? Oh, you want to marry me? I'm like, yes. Oh, and she sat down and she said yes.
That's such an 80s movie, you know, the plot of it. So y'all went to Puerto Rico. What were y'all doing there? Were you arting or
No, we
the
went,
other thing?
Well, I circled anything near the equator and said I was willing to move there because winter, after 4 years at Appalachian, not a fan.
Yes.
So we lived on Society Street downtown, so we left a car on the street, and we put all of our stuff in storage, and we had about $2,000, and we went to Puerto Rico. So we we had a dog with us as well, a little Jack Russell, and we stayed in an apartment, a hotel for about 3 or 4 days, but it got expensive. So we took all of our money and rented a condo for the month on the beach. So we had about a week's vacation. We laid on the beach. We just did what everyone else does on a Caribbean vacation. And then a week later, we were out of money. Like, well, okay, are we going to go back and beg for our jobs? Or are we going to get jobs here and stay? And there was a small, at that time, very small English-speaking newspaper there called the San Juan Star. And it was a tiny little thing, but it was in English. And there were 2 jobs, like in the classifieds. So this is what, 91?
91 or 2.
And one job was a nanny, and one job was for a bartender. And Kay got the nanny job, and I got the bartending job.
Yeah.
Neither one of us knew anything about it.
Either one.
Kay, you made a transition to working in a resort or a hotel or something. What was that all about?
I've got the nanny job happened to be for a family. Both husband and wife worked through the Sands Hotel and Casino.
Okay, right on.
And they were down there. He worked with the high rollers. She was in finance. And eventually, and their little daughter is who I was watching. And they really were doing some time down there for a while. And I don't know what prompted them to move there, but they always wanted to go back with family that all lived in the New Jersey area, where they also had the Sands Hotel. So they went back, and when they decided to move back to the States and work for the stateside Sands, they introduced me to the guy who ran all the pool services at the Sands Hotel, Joe Castillo, which had Castillo Water Sports. And so I went from a briefcase and a suit at the Post and Courier to shorts and playing Candyland with a little girl, to wearing a bathing suit to work and taking people out on catamaran tours and going snorkeling.
That is cool. Did you ever run into anybody famous at the resort? Any good stories about that?
You kicked out that guy from Law and Order.
I did kick out Chris Noth or whatever. He was trying to use the pool, and he was not staying at the hotel, although he did change hotels and came back the next day and flaunted his room key in my face.
Yeah,
But
we
he was
apologize to Christopher. He's a friend of the show.
Well, he was nothing but nice about it, so that was fine.
Did you meet a guy that was a baseball player or something?
Oh,
That came across kind of about my job. If you want to segue into that, because I was bartending. I don't know why I got the job. I was like, somebody ordered a rum and Coke. I'm like, what's in that? But somehow I managed to get the job. But I really enjoyed it for a while. But then I left on a 2-month sailing trip across the Atlantic Ocean with some buddies, and I came back to San Juan, and they wouldn't hire me back at my job. I'd been gone 2 months. So there was this woman there named Jan DeSopo, who was Connecticut, but the old city of San Juan is like downtown Charleston, but kind of on the mountainside.
Yeah.
But a bunch of old houses that actually all kind of built together. Well, she ended up owning about 12 houses and ran a bed and breakfast, high-end banquet facility, and an art studio. So I ended up working for her, doing art in all capacities, screen printing. So I learned how to do bronze casting, which I didn't learn in college.
Okay.
And it was like 2 blocks from my house in the old city. But she had these high-end banquets because a lot of the American pharmaceutical companies operated plants down there, and so she would charge $200-$300 a head to come to this house and have like this fancy dinner. Well, Kaye was there one night, and you can tell the rest of the story with.
I believe they were travel agents or tour guide type people, but anyway, there was a big crowd of people there. None of the rooms at this place had TVs or anything.
There's only one TV in the whole
area,
complex.
and it was in their master bedroom.
The lady that I worked for.
And we were close to her. We had, we would go over in the afternoons. We would watch the dogs sometimes if they were flying back to the States for any period of time or whatever. So one of the people at the banquet asked if there was a TV because his son was nominated for a Country Music New Artist of the Year award. And it was Tug McGraw, and Tim, his son, was being nominated. And Jan did not feel comfortable just having a stranger hanging out in her bedroom.
So she made Kaye go.
So she found someone stranger, me, to go up since I wasn't employed and working the banquet. I walked up and we hung out, and the TV hung at the end of the bed, so we just propped ourselves up on the bed
and watch this thing.
Right, and watch the Country Music Awards. And Tim McGraw did win the Country Music Artist, and he was very excited, and it was kind of nice. But I got to spend a night in bed with Doug McGraw.
That story could be taken it could really get out of hand with
Yes. Yes, but this was very literal. That is what we did.
I worked on O.J. Simpson's last movie.
Holy cannoli.
They shot it at this same place. It was called the Galleria San Juan, and truly it was like 7 houses, but they were combined with stairs and courtyards and fountains. But they were shooting a pilot for a TV show called Navy SEALs. And O.J. Simpson was in it, and so was William Devane. And so when Jan, the lady that ran the place, something like that happened, she left town. So I was in charge of everything going on there. And O.J. Simpson, they stayed at the hotel. And so we didn't have a TV either. So we kind of missed the whole Bronco thing, which happened about 3 months later.
Yeah, that seemed about right.
But they did all the shooting for 2 weeks or so, I guess. And but it was a pilot for the show. And I started getting these phone calls from like ABC News and all this, and they wanted dirt on O.J. Simpson because I was on the payroll of the movie production company, not for the lady and Jan, not the artist. And so they want to know if he had Puerto Rican girlfriends, if he's going out to clubs and stuff. And I'm like, well, all I know is that he was able to jump off a second-story balcony with a spear in his hand, and part of the testimony was that his knee was hurt or he was injured. I saw the man jump off a second-story balcony. But he has
Are you saying lawyers lie?
What's that? But so yeah,
we're just saying his health may have gone down quite rapidly since that jump.
Right.
He's dead now.
Yes, he is.
So were y'all doing art in Puerto Rico, or did you wait until you got back to the States?
Yeah, so I was helping the lady. So there's a big hotel there called the Yale Conquistador, and we did all the art for this hotel, which represented probably 2,000 screen prints
of her work.
And Jan did pretty much the basic design, but I did all the work. I did all the screen printing, all the framing. I even hung the things. But she signed them all, and I got my regular paycheck. But I was doing bronze casting, which is what I do now, but I didn't learn that in college. It wasn't until Puerto Rico that I learned how to do it.
Okay, how about you, Kaye? Were you doing anything down there?
I was not. No, I was the dummy that had the scuba tank strapped on her back while they taught scuba lessons. I was still taking people out on the catamaran. I mean, absolutely loved what I was doing, but any sketching or anything I was doing was just for me.
Right.
It wasn't.
Right.
Well, I mean, that sounds super fun, right?
Yeah, taking in the sights and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Scuba diving, I can see how you'd get distracted a little bit. So you came back to Charleston at some point, right?
Well, we went to Europe. We thought we'd try living there. So we were in San Juan for 3.5 years. And then we kind of got island fever. And so we went to Europe and we're going to try our hand at living in Europe. And nature had a different plan for us. And so it turned out we were having a family. So we kind of panicked and we came back to Charleston. So what the deal was, we came back and we had no money, no health insurance, no car, no place to live. And we're like, well, if we're going to do art, this is the time. And so I was kind of a slacker prior to this, but at this point, something clicked in my brain and I started working and doing art, and I haven't stopped yet.
Kids
That's
will
28
do
years
that
ago.
to you.
Was that?
Kids will do that to you.
Yeah.
It will. It's your sense of urgency kicks up a little bit. You go back to school, you get a job, whatever. You know, I mean, well,
However you do it.
ideally.
Well, studying with the artists in San Juan, we kind of think, well, maybe we can do that too, actually make a living at it. And 28 years later, we're still at it. So.
That's fantastic.
Where does Spoleto figure into this? Were you guys early entrants of Spoleto? How many years?
I think 20.
You're probably a little over 20, and I'm a little less
You
than
start like a
20.
year after, right? Yeah. Spoleto's the most fun I have all year. People think it's a little weird that I enjoy it as much as I do, but it's like art camp, and like we're both professional artists and paint all the time, as is Madeline. But a lot of people, it's still kind of a hobby for them, and they get out there, and it's work, and it is work for me as well, but it's also a chance to kind of be around art, and other artists, because art's very
Yes.
solitary. We're at home in our studios doing our thing, and
Our
this
Christmas party
opportunity-
sucks.
What?
Our Christmas party sucks
What?
because there are only 2 of us at the party. We're the only 2 employees.
Okay. But it's just get around other artists, and I paint when I'm there, and it's the show's unique in the world, really, because I do a lot of weekend shows. We just get in and get out, and you barely meet your neighbors. This is 17 straight days. You have the same space every year. You have the same neighbors every year. So it's a community that we've seen each other's kids grow up, and and during the day, we have a lot of free time, so we're playing practical jokes on each other, and it's
Right.
There's no other show like it that I'm aware of anywhere.
Individual tents? What do y'all do? Because
We
it is a
have
tent
2 tents.
show.
We kind of attach them together.
Okay. Well, it's convenient. You get to see each other. Even on your 2 weeks of camp, you still are living
We're
with
still
each
beside
other.
each other,
Yeah, right on.
Well, it's important. It's important to always, have a date night and, to keep things calm and stay together.
Sure.
And he goes on Tuesday and I go on Thursday.
Madeline's a Spoleto person. Are you queued up near the Penegars when you're out there?
I'm right beside them, and there's so much fun, so much drama going on. It's fun.
we love our
Scott and
Spoleto
Kaye
neighborhood.
Always make me laugh.
Okay, good. I mean, it seems like those are long days and hours. How many years? How many days was it this year? Like 17 or something?
17.
Was it Sunday 18?
No.
No,
No,
it was
breaking
17.
down was 18 once and if you count setting up, and
Yeah,
depending on
it's
what
like-
day.
It's about 20 days.
Yeah, 20 days if you count setup and breakdown.
Yeah, it's the thorn, but the rose is the Penegars.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Spoleto is a big deal for Charleston, so it's good to be involved in it and to be, I guess, integral to the, what is the name of out in the park part of that? The PSOA, Piccolo Spoleto.
Outdoor
Outdoor
art
art.
exhibit.
Yeah,
Hey,
PS,
that's right.
Piccolo Spoleto Outdoor Art Exhibition.
Okay, I got it right except for the E. So that's pretty good, 4 out of 5 is pretty good. So getting back to the sculpture, what are you mainly? What are your subjects usually, and how long does it take to do a cast?
So with the, I do native marine life. I use my marine biology training and just the fact that, I love all things, all nature. So I do native species primarily is kind of my thing. And I work both in stone and bronze. So bronze is an awful process. And it's hard to even describe, in words, but Like an original sculpture, I have like an octopus sculpture that took me 8 months to do the original. It has like 2,000 suction cups, and I used my marine biology to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be and they're anatomically correct. Yeah. But that particular piece took me 8 months.
Wow.
Now to cast it is a whole nother ball game of like 3 months of heat and nastiness to actually produce it, get it from the clay to the bronze.
Is it
But
usually,
it's
is it usually just like one mold, or is it like multiple?
no, like this particular one is 25 individual molds. So it truly it'll be difficult to explain here.
Yeah, what's the suction cup thing you're talking
Well, it's an
about?
octopus. Sorry, I didn't explain that.
On
So
the-
this
on
particular
the
piece is like an
octopus.
octopus.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you asked because I
I thought you
mentioned
used
that.
suction cups. I forgot octopuses had suction cups.
Octopuses.
Whatever. I'm not a marine biologist.
Well, I do stone animals as well.
When they lay out, each piece then is labeled, and this is like tentacle 1, part 2, part 3. So if
okay.
it's laid out on, say, an 8-foot table, it looks like some sort of horrible autopsy of all the little pieces and then all of those are cast individually and then reassembled back into the one single
Wow.
octopus.
Yeah, all bronzes are done that way.
Okay, I had no
I
idea.
had no idea
And the
either.
process hasn't changed in 4,000 years. It's still really basic.
Wow. Well, hopefully AI will take care of that.
Can I ask Kaye a question? Hopefully not.
Really?
Really?
Go ahead.
They'll
Madeline.
be moving in with us, and you'll take care of all of us. Okay, Kaye, I want to ask you about your art processes and what inspires you. I know you're a painter, but I know you kind of dabble in other things too sometimes, correct?
A little bit. For a while, I actually took the small little pieces of stone left from him and made jewelry for a while
Oh,
of
that's
all
cool.
of the pieces, and that was during COVID. That if somebody didn't let me out of the house, or why they gave me sharp tools, but probably not the best idea. But worked on that for a while and enjoyed it, but still painting low country scenes is really my passion. And I mentioned this to several people who came through the booth at Spoleto, but I remember in art history class talking about Cezanne painting Mount Saint Victoire like over 3,000 times in his lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember at 18 thinking, well, boy, that man needs another hobby or something. And now I realize I've painted the Stono River probably 1,000 times, but depending on the time of day and the humidity and the time of year and the weather, it can completely change a painting. And it absolutely, it brings a calmness to me to see scenes that remind me, even when I paint the cotton fields and barns from around where I grew up, that to me is my favorite thing to paint.
That's
And
cool.
how I decide whether I feel I'm finished, if he can keep his mouth shut about it and finally says, yes, I like it, okay. And then I like to put it either on the couch or on an easel in the kitchen where everybody always hangs out. And if I'm in the kitchen 3 days in a row and I still like looking at it, then I consider it done. If there's something that's bothering me on it every time I walk by it, it's like, it's got to go back to the easel and work on something else.
Yeah, I
that's-
turn mine around so I don't have to look at it. And then a couple days later, I turn it back around. And if I have a problem, I'm like, oh, that's what's wrong with that. I'll see it.
That helps me too, taking a photograph
Oh, yeah, that helps a
of
lot.
my painting and then sitting there looking at it and going, well, that's not right at all. And it is, but those are my two, a photograph and having it there in a room where my second favorite thing is eating, that we spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And and your friends and the stuff you like hang out in your kitchen.
Yeah.
So if I can deal with it for 3 days, it's done.
So, painting something 1,000 times, or as Cezanne did, maybe it's an obsession, but it sounds like when you're trying to capture those moments and times, it's very personal to you. Each of those times. Is it hard for any of y'all to give up your art after you've done a piece? We can go around around. And do you ever have that piece you're like, man, I really do not want this to leave the house? How about you, Scott?
No, because I'd say,
Let me answer that. I've had to hold his arm and stop him from following this couple back to their car with the painting that he loved. I was like, you don't go with it. You're staying here. The painting is the only part leaving.
Well,
But
we give buyers a adoption form, and they have a week we have a week to process and make sure they're able to take this painting. No,
Right.
but they are. You spend a lot of time with them. You become attached to them. But then at the same time, we got to pay our bills.
Right. Kay, you kind of keep yours and have dinner with it all the time.
I do, and the thing about it is, for me, if a person likes it, it's very easy to let go of it. I have a harder
Yes.
time listening to someone come in and critique work or go, well, God, I don't even like the beach. And I was like, well, then don't buy that painting. But, and sometimes you get critiques and you're wondering, that's when I want to follow somebody out and go, I'm sorry, what's your background? Critique it then. I didn't hear the part other than you just didn't like it. And that is harder for me to let go of. But the painting and somebody loves it, that makes me happy. I mean, it's like, I am so happy that what I'm trying to convey has related to you and you want to spend time with it.
Yeah. How about you, Madeline?
There's one painting I sold from Columbia to, it was early on in my art career. And it was a picture of Devin when he was young, laying on the floor and the sun is coming through the window. And then he's watching cartoons, even though I didn't put the TV in it. And I love that one. And the other one that I won't sell is one where he's swimming.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I won't, if I have something that I've done with my family or whatever, I don't want to sell it.
Yeah, that's the same with me. I have one of my nephews, and their dad had told them not to play with this net off his dock. And I took a picture of them leaning into the water trying to figure out where the net went. And it's like an overhead shot looking down on them. And I did a painting of that. And
I did a pencil drawing of it, and we gave them to.
Oh,
No, you gave the pencil drawing. I kept the painting.
That's right.
I didn't want to part with that painting.
He's not as generous as I am.
Devin, how about you? You did a lot of 3D, and you had all those sculptures in the Miami Museum of Art that took a ton of time. What was it like getting rid of that? And maybe as a younger generation considers art more consumable now?
I personally have never been too attached to a piece of artwork that I make because I can just make more. And, I get enough out of taking photos of the stuff beforehand. The 3D work I created was actually meant to kind of be decomposed over time. It was made of cardboard.
Oh, okay.
So it was
I
kind
saw
of.
all those.
Yeah, it was.
Because I didn't know you, but Miss
You
Nichols,
came
I
to,
think
you came to
she
his
took me
opening.
around and showed me
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was very impressed.
Thank you. But I don't know. I do a lot of digital work too. So as far as I'm concerned, if I can make money off the piece, I'm like, sure, take it. But that's just me,
No, I'm with you on
We
that.
like being paid for our
Yeah.
jobs.
Do you guys have any upcoming events, or do you have anything to plug? Any shows? Anything?
Only I've got is the Adalea show, and that's up in Murals Inlet. And it's this family, the Huntingtons, owned Brookgreen Gardens, which is across the street. And they had this house, which is this crazy house. It's like this big square with like 10 servants' quarters. There's a big atrium in the middle, and it's not even renovated. The roof leaks, and it's right on the beach. But they do.
Yeah.
The South Carolina State Parks puts on a show in this building, which was the house that this family lived in, that owned Brookgreen Gardens. So I've got that coming up the last weekend of September.
27th, 28th, and 29th.
Which is they don't promote it here though, which is crazy because it's right up, especially in Mount Pleasant, because it's Emerald's Inlet, so it's only about an hour or so north of Mount Pleasant. And then the end of
Well, prior to that, you have.
I go out west. I do a sculpture show in Loveland, Colorado every year, which is about an hour north of Denver, and it's the largest sculpture show in the country. It's just
Wow.
sculpture. And what's unique is that it's a lot of Western themed work and a lot of abstracts, but I only do my coastal South Carolina stuff, and I've always done really well because I've kind of stood out because that's all I'm doing. And the show's been great because it was a great way for me to vacation with my kids because I would load up my minivan with sculptures and children and their friends, and Kaye would stay home and be very happy about having the house to herself, and we would go out, do the show, spend another 2 weeks seeing the West, and so the show is profitable. It's great exposure, and also it's a great time to spend quality time with my kids.
So the Atalaya show, we're familiar with it. We've been there before. That lady that lived there, she was an artist too,
She
right?
was a
She had a
sculptor.
bunch of monkeys and elephants and stuff.
Bears.
Yeah, in that house, she kept a lot of animals, and
Yeah.
that she used for sculpture studies, and which is kind of cool about it, is that I don't show paintings there, I only show sculpture. And the fact that I'm in this house where this woman did ours, these big bronzes, and I'm showing bronzes myself, so it's really, it's inspiring to be there.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Devin, you have any more questions?
Nope, all good.
Okay. Madeline, do you have anything to add? Do you have any shows coming up, by the way, since
any
you're
shows
on
coming
here?
Oh, I have a show this week starting Sunday in Cashiers, North Carolina. It's a Cashiers Plein Air Art Invitational. And then that's coming up. Might have a show in November. And I think I have the Park Circle Art Walk coming up too.
Is the plein
in the
air,
fall.
Is the plein air thing, people can come watch y'all or do a
Yes.
show or?
It's a fundraiser for the Village Green, but yeah, people can come watch. And there are certain events you have to have tickets for, and there's some events you can just come and watch us.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, well, we appreciate everybody coming out here. It was a little hot. It was a little noisy, but it is Charleston, South Carolina. We'll talk to you next time on the Shrimp City Report. Y'all have a great day.
Bye.